All right, everybody. Just let YouTube pick up the stream here. Just take a second, and there it is. And hello to everyone. Welcome to Coffee Kegs in Kriegsspiel. I am your host, Marshall, and it looks like today we should be live streaming properly on YouTube. It looks like it's coming across on YouTube Live. If anyone's watching the live stream, just let me know that you're there. Last week we had an issue where the live stream didn't work the way it was supposed to. But in any case, that has been corrected. And of course, anyone here in the Discord, if at any time you want to pipe up and say something or ask a question, feel free to raise your hand. I'll try to keep track of the Discord. I'll let you in. I want to talk about the 1807 campaign because we're starting that tomorrow, and there's a lot of ground to cover in terms of what's going on in the campaign. You're looking at a dated version of the 1806 map. It's actually a dated map as well. I ought to just update the map, but I'll just leave it as it is for now. You see that there's a number of activities going on. We have commander avatars, we have unit pieces on the map, and so on. A lot of this is going to change as we start into 1807. Exactly what is going to change, each player will learn of that when we start. If there are any changes, they'll be communicated to you prior to the beginning. But I kind of want to just give a general overview of each nation and what's going on with each nation. Just be advised that the pieces and the count of pieces and other things are not necessarily correct. We were messing around on this map prior to going live here. But I'm going to go over each nation, give some basics and some backgrounds, which will make this useful for people who are new to the game. And then I will talk about some of the goings-ons and the interplay between them. I'll try not to give away any secrets or too much game. I don't think I will. And then we'll talk about some other exciting developments in the campaign that a number of you might not yet be aware of. So let's go ahead and begin. And first of all, we'll start with Altmark. Altmark is our England analog, meaning it is basically England, along with the Low Countries. So it's, Anglo-Dutch, if you will. And they have kind of a small military. They have some really good troops, but mostly it's militia grade forces and so on. And then you have a very powerful navy. So what they lack in military prowess and capability, they make up for big time in terms of their fleet. And we don't really have much in the way of markers here. But we do have very powerful naval vessels. In fact, Altmark recently, and this would now be common knowledge by early 1807, laid down the hull for a new type of ship that is faster, stronger, more powerful than any other ship in existence. So their navy is quite powerful and has the ability to run the seas if they wish. I'm going to give you, I just realized I'm showing my face on the screen, which is fine, but I want you to see more of the map, so I'm going to turn that off real quick. There you go. Okay, let's take a look at, let's go over here. Now, this is Blaureich, this big blue one here. And I just noticed that the map doesn't even have the correct, the nation name. So this is really an outdated map. But in any case, the blue here is Blaureich. And Blaureich is actually the blue and the gray black portion right here, these two together. When it's spoken of individually, however, we call it Blaustein. And Blaustein is basically the Prussia analog. And it is a big, huge agrarian state. It's very large. It has a big population. They don't have trouble with food or famine because they have an overabundance of food supply. What they do lack are things like metals, like lead, silver, gold, coal, so on, those sorts. Mineral wealth is something that they're lacking on, which they trade for from the Southern Duchy. Talk about the Southern Duchy momentarily. The Blau do not have much in the way of a navy. They have a small navy that's not particularly capable. However, they do have a massive, powerful army. In fact, the largest army in all of Reisswelt. The troops are basically conscript level. They're not the greatest troops. However, their numbers make up for their lack of sophistication. Um, Again, a little bit backwards in some ways, but at the same time, they do have one national trait that might surprise people, which is that the citizenry of Blau are infamously or famously loyal. They are not likely to be disloyal or to participate in subversion schemes or stuff internally, much to the surprise of some people, right? There have recently, in the past couple big campaigns, been some attempts to kind of overthrow or change the government or do things that probably shouldn't be happening. And those attempts actually were undone by that particular trait, making Blau particularly politically stable. So anytime somebody says, hey, I want to, start a coup or start trouble in Blaureich, you're going to have a lot of resistance to it. Even an attempted Janist rebellion, which is really a socialist rebellion or movement in Blaureich, didn't really go as far as people might have thought it went, simply because of this particular national trait. So it's very useful. Let's talk about the Southern Duchy, only because they're connected to Blau-Stein. They're part of Blaureich. They're a sort of like Switzerland in a way. They're very high, mountainous, and they provide the mineral wealth that Blau needs in order to sustain itself. At the same time, Blau trades the food wealth that they produce with the Southern Duchy, and together it's a fair exchange. While they are technically part of the Blaureich, however, they are somewhat independent, both, culturally, politically, and of course religiously. They have some, a strong independence streak to them. They also practice serfdom, and it's kind of it's practically slavery in the Southern Duchy, and it is a very harsh society. If you take Switzerland and blend it with a little bit of Romania, blend it with a little bit of ancient Sparta, and you have the Southern Duchy, and it makes a lot of sense. It works really well. They have a very small but very powerful military, and they also have these guys, which is, no, that's not it. They have the Stahlfalke mercenaries, who are incredibly effective mercenaries, which they host. And those mercenaries are particularly good because they're drawn from troops all across the continent, and those troops that they draw in are already veterans. So there's a number of cool things about the Southern Duchy. But small population, small nation overall, a little bit backwards. They practice serfdom, but still a fun nation to play. Here in the middle, in the pink, you have another part of Blaureich, which is Fior, and they're sort of like a Vatican City or Venice or some sort of little mini semi-autonomous city-state, where the Knights of Fior are in support by contract by ancient contract to Blaureich. But the Pope, if you will, also lives here. So, and again, it's like Vatican City, and the Knights are also loyal to the Pope. Now, we have recently changed this because we want to get away from real-world religions. So there's a different religion, I think it's called pupilism, and the teacher, His Holiness, is a player in the game and is basically running that religious organization. That religion has you see these little houses here? This is how I know it's an outdated map, because I've changed a lot of these. But all these little monastery buildings here that you see represent chapter houses and monasteries where that particular religion has reach and influence, where they have their houses set up. So it's quite expansive. That gives them a lot of trade wealth, and that gives them a lot of intelligence information, because they have these little networks of knowledge that are out there spreading. All right, let's go ahead and go east first. Here we have Zarkina, and Zarkina is sort of a Russia analog, and they are not in a very good state in early 1807. There's basically been a collapse of the government. Their czar died, and died while they were in the middle of invading Abyssinia, which we'll talk about in a moment. And as a consequence, there's a lot of internal turmoil. The invasion has collapsed completely, and basically they are a non-factor as far as a military threat goes. But their domestic situation very greatly needs cleanup, and it's unclear who's going to emerge as the victorious leader in this state. But whoever does, they have a lot of housekeeping to do, and really that's probably how they should spend 1807, is sorting out their house, because if they don't, well, we really don't want any more civil wars. We've had some bad experiences with those. We really just want to kind of stabilize situations, and they'll be rewarded if they make the right choices. They'll be punished if they don't. Here in the south, we have Abyssinia, and this is sort of an Ottoman Empire analog, if you will. A large military that's made up simply of complete conscripts. People, basically feudalism is the story here, and they draw people from, every local town, village, and farm who can hold a farm implement or a weapon. And remarkably, they successfully destroyed the Zarkinian invasion, which overextended itself and was ultimately poorly executed. The original plan wasn't horrible, but it lacked some key elements such as flank support and a proper supply network. As a consequence, they've been able to swing west and defend against a Vermilion invasion, which has basically threatened to crush the nation entirely at the end of 1806. I won't say more. There's a lot more to this story, but I'm not going to say more at this time. Of course, here in the middle, we have Liesen, which is sort of an in-between country, a buffer state between Vermilion and Blaustein, who are natural and traditional enemies. These guys kind of have to play this kind of neutral path where they politically, have to say nice doggy, until they can get their hands on a stick. And there's just a lot going on in Liesen. So they are in a political situation, and if you're interested in deep political gameplay, these are the ones you want to play, because their negotiations with other countries make a big difference over what happens to them, because the instant something goes on between Vermilion and Blaureich, well, guess where they're going to play. They're going to play in the middle of Liesen, which is not good. So Liesen has to walk a very fine line, and it's a very great challenge. Meanwhile, Vermilion, which is the French analog, it was in 1804 when we started this campaign. It was this very powerful nation that ended up being ruled by an emperor, if you will, who had designs of basically conquering the whole continent. That collapsed because there was a coup. Nonetheless, the nation is resurgent very quickly. It's bounced back. And the reason it's bounced back quickly is most of the conflict and most of the trouble, I would say most of the internal turmoil and destruction, is kind of limited to the central area here. There were battles out here and, a few running battles, and there was a lot of fighting out here. But the productive areas of the nation, which is here where they produce most of their food, and out here where they have a lot of their trade, and out here where they have a lot of their export goods grown and produced, those regions were largely untouched, which facilitated the rapid bounce back. What was destroyed, however, was their industrial heartland, and this is where they produce most of their material, is these three central cities, which are, here and here. And I think, is there another one? Or maybe it's here, Traincourt. But these central cities where they produce everything, Mosiers, is another one. Their big trade port kind of got overrun, if you will. Oh, it's Romagny. That's the third one right there. So this area here was, overrun with radicals and insurgencies and so on. But that has been rebuilt. They've spent a year rebuilding it, and most of those things are now back online or coming online. So the nation is resurgent under a military dictator by the name of Charles Martel. So Those are the active player countries. We have a couple other countries that we haven't mentioned. One up here is Kavreich. Again, not labeled. It is labeled on the updated map, just as is an outdated map. This is basically a Viking analog, Scandinavian analog, and Blau is at war with them, and they've basically taken over this whole portion. But they're going to have a hard time holding it because they finally sorted themselves out. They've organized a resistance. They control the sea thanks to the Altmark Navy, which has come in on their behalf. And now it's going to be this massive Vietnam-style guerrilla campaign slog for Blau to either hold this or hold the hordes at bay. And it's unclear what's going to happen next. But these guys are pretty upset and angry because Blau invaded them. And we'll see what happens next as far as that's concerned. Here we have the nation of Dorado, a very wealthy trading nation. Think of it like a cross between Spain and, Venice or the Italian city-states. It's ruled by a doge. They have gold, wealth, and other things. They are strong with cavalry. But otherwise, they're a relatively peaceful trading state that tries to stay aloof and outside of the politics of Reisswelt. However, I have a feeling they're going to come into play big time on this particular game, this particular iteration in 1807. So that's what we've got going on. Of the interplay between them, we have, Altmark here and Kavreich over here. We have, let's see here, we've got Blaureich here and the Southern Duchy, obviously. We have Liesen, which is kind of a question mark. It's unclear how they're going to come out, but then again, that's how Liesen survives. We have Zarkina, which is on their own, but they probably need to focus internally. They have two capitals, by the way. This came up recently. They have a capital here, and they have a capital here in the north, St. Petrov. In fact, it's even labeled Northern Capital. And down here, I bet you this is labeled Southern Capital, but we'll see. No, it's not, but it's marked as the Southern Capital. So there's that, and this is the primary capital. You have Abyssinia down here with their beautiful sheep, their pastoral way of life down here. And then, of course, you have Vermilion up here. And these guys here, we'll see what happens with them. And some exciting news now, we'll just erase all the lines, is that this is about to expand big time. Let's see here if I can pull up. Oh, I guess I can pull it up in WonderDraft, can I? Afrique, the continent of basically Africa analog in the south, is going to be a factor. And I'll be getting to the comments momentarily, by the way. And there are two colonies of particular note here in Afrique. The one is Red Sud-Afrique, which is the former Vermilion colony. Let's do it this way. And that particular colony is now in Altmark hands. So they have the slave port, if you will, where they used to trade slaves. The slave trade has recently been outlawed and is winding down. They have a trade port here, a village of the east or whatever. And they're surrounded by a Zulu analog, the Luzu people, who have basically kind of conquered most all of the interior of the continent. And up here in the north somewhere, there's another Altmark colony, which I need to map out and get on here. And that particular colony is now also surrounded by the Luzu. And that information will be filtering north shortly. And at some point in future games, this whole continent will come into play. And what we're doing and what we've been doing kind of secretly is building up the lore of this region so that when players do step in, they're already starting to put their toe into it. But when they do step into it, there'll be this whole backstory and these preconditions set and established. And, it will be like exploring a proper new world. Then there is Avalonia. Now, I don't have a handy map for Avalonia, but Avalonia is the New World analog, and that's over here somewhere across the Cyrus Sea. And that will also be in play here in 1807. And we're going to have somebody who will be umpiring that and kind of sorting all of that out. Players have not really had a lot of updates over the past year, but I would say just lore-wise, things have kind of calmed down over there. There was a lot of upheaval, but things have calmed down. We know because trade ships have been coming across. We know there was some piracy that was taking place, but the Vermilions kind of batted that down or suppressed it. And there's just a lot going on in this world. So what else do we have after 1807? Well, we'll see. We kind of want all these wars and little conflicts to wrap up so that we can come to a decision as players and umpires if we want to do what I call time skipping, which is where we might jump ahead 5 or 10 years or something. The idea is to play this campaign into the future. We don't want every year to be the Napoleonic Wars on perpetual repeat. What we want is periods of peace, but the periods of peace are kind of boring. The whole purpose of the campaign is really to generate battles that players can play that are interesting. So in order to do that, we kind of need to time skip so that nations can kind of rebuild and populations can rebuild. And then we can play interesting chapters of history. There will be plenty of 19th century conflicts, I'm sure. But it would also be kind of cool to see a World War I or World War II style conflict, and maybe even a Cold War conflict later into the future as we go. But we also want to play out as much as we can between now and then because we want all the big decisions to be made by human players who are playing off each other and interacting with each other. Let's take a look at some questions here. Thank you, Justin, for letting me know that we're streaming well. Achilles, good morning, sir. Good to see you. We have some representation from the Abyssinians here. How do you join the Kriegsspiel? Okay, great. You want to join us. Well, in order to join us, first you must bring us a shrubbery. I'm joking. Kriegsspiel.org is our website. Here you go. Go to Kriegsspiel.org. This is our website. And by the way, people have been asking about resources and other things. It's all right here. Maps in particular. People have been asking about maps. They've been asking about rules. You can get those from our website, Kriegsspiel.org. But if you want to join us, you just click there, and it'll take you right into our Discord. And you join us, and you play. You just join right in. Okay? All right, let's see here. There we go. The teacher's a player in chat. I think you're talking about Otto, but I'm not sure. Let's see here. Dutch. No idea what exactly is this world is or how it would be played, but it looks cool so far. Yeah, this is a fictional Europe, if you will, that we've made up. And we kind of wanted to play the Napoleonic Wars, but we didn't want the politics. And this is a big deal in most Kriegsspiels. When you play Kriegsspiel, one of the problems is if you do a historic battle, a historic campaign, or a historic order of battle, if you use something that's actually historic or play something historic, you're going to get into trouble because the players are going to tell you, well, you're wrong. This unit had this particular weapon at that battle, and they had this capability, and I want a bonus to this unit, and so on, or whatever. Or they're going to tell you something else that you got wrong. And the really bitter hell of it is that person's going to be correct. They're going to be right. You are wrong. Because they will have read more books about this and have visited the battlefield or something. They're going to know more about this than you. And they're going to call you on it. And frankly, it's kind of annoying. It's cool on one hand. We get it. We appreciate the subject matter experts. But on the other hand, that's not the focus of what we're trying to do. What we're trying to do is play Kriegsspiel, which is a military training exercise, and it's about making the right decisions. And it's also a lot of fun. And we don't need to sit there and worry about weapon types and commander attributes and some of these other things that people think really enhance the game, but they actually just add work to it and slow it down. They actually don't give you the boost to the enjoyment of the game that you would expect that it would give you. As a consequence, we try to fictionalize everything. So everything is kind of an abstraction or fictionalization so that we don't deal with the politics and we don't deal with the button counters and we don't deal with the rivet counters and all of this other stuff. We are informed by those things, but we don't have to play, one to one with those things, which avoids just a lot of conflict and complications. So that's what that is. It's a heck of a lot of fun, though. Let's see here. Otto asks, when are James and all the other people who have recently hosted campaigns getting on the podcast? When they pay the fee. They haven't bought their mugs, Otto. I'm supposed to interview James probably this evening. I've got some family stuff that's up in the air. And then once that's settled, I would like to do an interview with him this evening and go over his recent campaign and other people. These will almost certainly be recorded, however, and then I will play them on a date when I'm not able to be online live, which will probably be the case next Sunday. I'm going to try to come on live, but we'll see. But there are going to be some situations where I can't come on, but I want you guys to have content, and then we will play those on those occasions. It also doesn't hurt to have extra content, so if people do want to come on and talk, and they can't come on the normal Coffee, Kegs, and Kriegsspiel, which is Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. Pacific time, then absolutely, I'm happy to record something or broadcast something live at a different hour. You just have to let me know. No problem. All right. When the podcast happens at a time when they're awake and available, I hear. Yeah, we just got to line up everything. Okay, Otto does not like how I call each country the real-life country analog. It's simplifying and it feeds unoriginality and roleplay. All right, good point. I do that so people kind of have some idea or clue of what we've based it on, but I get it. All right, you can have that one. All right, I'll try to avoid that. Let's see here. There will be no more big battles from this world, or will there be more big battles from this world in the open Saturdays? Yes, that is the intention. That is the point. That's what we're trying to do. We want to run battles here on open Saturday, and they will be pretty big. So that will be happening. Can you join the battles and not participate in the grand scheme? The answer is yes. You have to show up to the open Saturday. We'll announce these in the Kriegsspiel server in our events little channel or whatever. You'll see the announcement, and you'll see that it's an 1807 for that Saturday, and that's what we want to do. All right. That's kind of all I have for today. If anyone has questions, you can put them in the YouTube chat. You can also come into the lobby, but it looks like everybody's just watching on YouTube now. We got tons and tons of viewers on the YouTube, which is great. Good to see you all there. And barring that, I don't have anything else to say, so there's no sense in prattling on. I hope that this has been informative and helps kind of serve as an introduction to the 1807 world. And if you have questions or whatever, come on into the Discord, post your questions. Somebody will give you an answer. And I think it's going to be a fun year for 1807 for the campaign. All right, well, that's all I've got for now. I want to thank you all for watching the show, and we will see you on our next adventure.